Why is it an absolute non-negotiable that Christians must resolve now to stand with Israel in full solidarity, both today and during the coming days of fire and great trial?
Well, first of all, let me just state very clearly, I have people, teachers that I respect that believe in the pre-tribulational rapture. It's not biblical. It's not in the Bible. We are grafted into Israel. Our Messiah is Israel's Messiah. Our God is Israel's God. We're grafted into the very covenants of Israel, etc. And Israel's tribulation is not something that we're going to skirt. We're called to stand with Israel. Now, during World War II, the church failed miserably in every way imaginable. With regard to the Holocaust, we failed. But the scriptures are clear that something worse is coming. Now, this is not just biblical prophecy. This is practical, pragmatic reality. These are families, lives. And we have to say, if the Bible says this is coming, and we look out in the earth, we look at news, we look at leaders of nations saying things that were never said before the Holocaust. Just in Germany, we're seeing it all over the world. Hatred of the Jewish people. We're seeing it college campuses. We're seeing all of the evidence.
Yes.
The Bible says something worse than the Holocaust is coming. We have recent history evidence in terms of what humanity is capable of, and yet the church is doing nothing to prepare for it.
What's worse than the Holocaust?
I mean, Jesus said that at that time there will be a tribulation such as has never been since there was a nation until that time.
Wow.
I mean, that's a pretty clear, direct statement. Gabriel, the archangel, says the same thing in Daniel 12. Jeremiah says the same thing in Jeremiah. He says, look, can a man give birth to a child? And the answer is no, by the way.
That's right.
Just in case anyone's not clear.
There it is.
It's a rhetorical question. No, of course men cannot give birth.
Right.
And he says, then why do I see every man with his face pale, with his hands on his stomach, in agony? He says, well, they're terrified. He says, it is the time of Jacob's trouble. That's the first reference in the Bible, the first clear reference in the Bible to the Great Tribulation. It's the time of Israel's tribulation. There is none like it. So this is the introduction of the concept of the great and terrible day of the Lord. And then again later, Gabriel expands upon that. Jesus expands upon it. It's a clearly taught doctrine from the beginning of the Bible to the end. Moses talks about it in Deuteronomy 32. And like right now, let's just say that all the missions organizations throughout the earth, they said, we know for sure that next year there's going to be another Holocaust in Rwanda. We would be mobilizing humanitarian organizations, NGOs, missions. We would be preparing for it. The scriptures are clear that the worst tribulation that has ever come is coming to Israel. And what is the church doing in preparation? We're just basically doing nothing. We say, oh, the church failed during World War II, but we won't fail. We go, well, what are we doing different? Nothing. We're not standing up for Israel. We're not preparing for what's coming. We don't even, half the church doesn't even believe, half the church believes these things are all fulfilled back in the first century. We don't even understand the biblical narrative, and thus we can't apply the principles of the biblical narrative to how we live. And so this is very practical, pragmatic. This is where practical missions and prophecy intertwine.
That is excellent. Excellent.